Hi friends, it's Diana here today, and today we're working on a full bust adjustment for a pattern with princess seams. So, let's get started. Alright, now that I know that I need to do a full bust adjustment, I need to print out my pattern pieces. I've got my front bodice and I've also got my lapel or your collar, whatever you're going to have at the front, because you will have to adjust this a little bit after you adjust your front bodice, but I'm going to put it to the side. So I've got my front bodice here, and what I'm actually doing is I'm using some gift wrapped paper that I had left over, and I'm going to create another pattern piece. Now if you're using a projector pattern piece, you could project it onto your table and actually cut out your pattern piece. You might want like the original and then another one, so you can do some cutting and stuff like that and then come back and put it together. So I'm going to go ahead and trace this out and cut myself another piece, and I'm going to cut it at here, this waistline right here, because I'm going to be working with the bust area. So I'm just gonna cut here at the waist so I don't have to print the whole pattern piece. Later on I will cut my front piece, my collar piece, at the same spot that I cut this to add the length. Alright, so I am going to be working on one piece. This is going to be cut mirrored. So I'm going to, when I add my measurements, I'm going to just be adding half the measurements, because I'm going to be adding half to one side and half to the other side. So I only have to do half on this side because they'll be cut mirrored. Okay, so the first thing you need to do is measure your upper bust and your full bust. And then the difference between the upper bust and full bust is what you want to add. Because this is we're working with a woven pattern today, you will have to add the whole difference. So let's say I'm 35 upper bust and 36 full bust, then I'll have to add a full inch to my pattern piece. But if I'm working with knit, which is not what we're doing today, but if we were working with knits, you cut that in half, kind of like we've done other full bust tutorials on knit patterns before. Now, I am going to have to add the full, we're going to go with 35, 36, so that's an inch difference. To give you an example, I'm going to have to add the whole inch. Now, like I said, I cut my pattern piece mirrored, so that's two pieces. We're going to split into two. So that means that I only have to add half an inch to each side. Alright, so here we have our pattern piece, and the first thing we're going to do is trace our seam allowance. This pattern has a 3/8 seam allowance, so I'm going to mark my seam allowance all around the front and around the arm side. So for this pattern, the spot right here where it sticks out is where your apex is. So I'm going to mark that spot for my apex. Now I'm going to draw 3 lines. I'm going to start the first line from my apex to my arm side. I'm going to draw that line. And then the next one I'm going to grab from the apex all the way to my shoulder. And I'm just going to go ahead and go along that seam allowance right here. And then I'm going to draw from my apex to the bottom of my pattern all the way down. Alright, so now we're going to grab some scissors and we're going to cut starting at the bottom where I drew that line, and we're going to go all the way up around the whole line. We'll go to the apex and then go all the way to the shoulder. We'll stop at the shoulder, leaving a little gap. You do not want to cut all the way out. You just want it to hinge out, so you can leave a little allowance here at the shoulder. Now we're also going to cut on the other side, starting at our arm side, and we're going to go all the way to our apex, also leaving a little hinge so that it can open up. Alright, so I've placed a piece of paper here at the bottom so I can do this next step. And what I'm doing is I'm hinging this pattern open by add right here what we need to add to it. So now remember, I'm going to be adding a full inch to my whole pattern, but because this is going to be cut mirrored, I'm only adding half to each side. So I'm going to add a half right here. So I'm going to measure half an inch, and that's how much I'm hinging out this pattern, this piece right here. Now, as you can see right here, there is a little bit of like a staircase to the bottom of my pattern. So I'm drawing a little line right here to connect it. So you see, I'm gonna have to add a little bit of length here at the pattern. So there is my little line that I'm drawing to connect it. Once I draw that line, I want to measure it to see exactly how much I'm going to have to add to the front of my bodice, like my lapel or my collar, because the length, it's a little bit extra, so I'm going to have to add it. So for me, this is going to be 3/8 of an inch. So I'm going to write that down, 3/8. Now the next couple measurements we need to take are the measurements of your apex, the new one, starting from the old one here at the line all the way to the outer edge. And that to me, it's an inch right here. So I'm going to go ahead and mark that. Okay, and also you're gonna mark the opening right here, what that is. And for me, it's 5/8. All right, so now we've got these 3 measurements. We have the inch of the new apex that we created. We've got the 3/8 of the length here that we added. And then we also have the 5/8 here that it's the opening for the dart. Now here at the side seam, you see that it doesn't quite match up. So I'm going to have to add a little bit here to match it up so that it matches correctly to my arm size. So I'm just kind of adding a little bit and kind of grading it out. So now it's nice and even and flushed all the way through. So I can go ahead and cut this out and it'll give me a nice even arm size. All right, now I'm gonna cut this out at this new area and I'm going to create another pattern piece, but I am going to keep my measurements. All right, so here's my new pattern piece. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to mark that apex mark right here. Remember, my marking was an inch, so I'm going to mark that inch first, right there. And I'm going to draw a line all the way down from the apex to the arm side. Then we're going to measure our 5/8 that it was our opening here. And then I'm going to measure from that 5/8 to my inch. So I'm just drawing a line to match up from the arm side to my apex. Then I'm also going to mark my 3/8 here that I had the extra length. I'm going to mark it here on this pattern piece as well. All right, so now we head over here where we created this dart and we're just going to cut it out like a wedge. We're just going to cut this wedge out. I'm going to cut all the way to my apex point and just remove that wedge. Now I'm also going to cut here at the edge just a little bit, not too much, just so it will hinge out. And now we can go ahead and close that little gap that we had. We can close that dart right there. So I'm going to close it and add some little tape to hold it down. Now, as you can see, at the other side, I have this like little gappy thing, and you don't want it to be like a staircase right here. You want it to be nice and smooth. So I'm going to go ahead and grab another piece of paper and just even that out, kind of smooth that edge out a little bit so it looks like a smooth arm side. Now that's much better. See how it's nice and smooth now? So now we're basically done with our front piece, but remember we've got these 2 little sections that have some extra fabric here at the bottom and then right here at the little wedge. So when we're going to work now on our lapel or our collar, we need to make sure that we're adding that to it as well. If we add it to the bodice, we have to add it to the collar piece as well. So we're going to do that now. All right, so now we've got our lapel and it is cut at the same spot that our bodice was cut. So if you cut your bodice at the waist, our lapel is also cut at the waist. And we're going to have a line here where we have A and B, and we're going to add those pieces to it. So I have the lines here. I'm going to, you can either go ahead and grab your pattern and cut out those spots and just add whatever you have, like 3/8 right here or whatever that is that yours is. You're going to add that at the bottom, and then whatever your gap was here at the top, you're going to add that here at the top. So it's up to you. I'm going to go ahead and just cut these lines, cut out these lines, and then when I place it over my pattern, my fabric, when I go to cut, I'm going to open it up just as much as I need to match up the same measurements as my front bodice. Now, if you want to, you can either add a little piece of paper or you can create a whole new pattern piece. This is up to you, but that is all that we have to do and we are done. All right, friends, I hope this was super helpful. I know that sometimes I'm a little intimidated when it comes to doing an adjustment or something like that, but I just want you to know that you can do it. And so I just wanted to give you a little bit of insight on how it is done, so you can go ahead and do that. I know that sometimes you think, oh, an inch difference is not that much. It's not going to make that big of a difference, but that will make your garment fit perfect to your body, and it won't have like any, you know, like gapping. Sometimes that fabric kind of does that little fold over or whatever when you have a pattern that's supposed to fit nicely. So you want it to look the best. So that's what we're here for. If you have any questions or comments, please comment below and let us know, or you can come find us on Facebook, where we have a great group of sewists who are so kind and so willing to help out if you have any questions. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Please comment, like, share, subscribe so you never miss any of our other tutorials, and I'll see you next time. Bye!